Hi, I'm Sebastian from Profil, and I'm glad to welcome you on board, John Young from Lifesigns. How are you tonight?
Good. Yeah, in good form.
So, your brand new album has just been released and is named Altitude.
Yeah.
How was the recording process due to the pandemic situation?
It's kind of a story of two halves, really. Firstly, we were all due because we're all professional musicians with other bands, so we all have day jobs with kind of more famous people, and so we were all due to be on the road pretty much all through the last year. And of course that stopped. I'd got back from a Russian tour, and I arrived back at Gatwick, and it was all finished, and then everybody else was as well. So we all kind of just looked at each other and said, "Well, should we make the album then?" And I think, in a way, if the pandemic hadn't have come along, we'd still be saying, "Shall we make the album?" So from that point of view, it was good to have something to focus on. I think because obviously the world is a very different place, but it was something that we could do remotely, so we could send things to each other. It was a different way of recording, which we had to get used to. But over the summer, we kind of all sent our parts in, and then Steve and I spent a couple of months mixing, and then we went to some mastering, and then we weren't happy, and then we went back and we started mixing again, which brought us all the way through to this year. And we mastered finally and we're happy with it. And it was kind of a year gone by that we would never have used in that way unless the pandemic had happened. So it's quite strange, really. We've sort of been out of the bubble of everyone's chaos because we had something to focus on and get on with. So I suppose that was a good thing.
Okay, I would say there is a band called Lifesigns, and you are the control tower. And and we can talk about Steve Rispin and his
Yeah.
fantastic contribution to the band. What do you think?
Well, I've known Steve for 20 years, and we've worked hand in hand for all that time, doing live shows, solo shows, band shows. Steve works with a lot of people. He works with Yes, he worked with Asia, so did I. We've kind of come through the same circles, but we always liked what each other did. And so we got to work more and more together. So when we put the band together originally, back in the late sort of what is around about 2008, 2009, Steve was an integral part of that and became a director of the band along with everyone else. So I know some people find it unusual that the guy that does the sound is part of the band, but it was integral to me from day one that was what was going to happen. And I think you can see the way that we work so closely. We can go in, Steve and I can go in and fight like cat and dog in the studio about whether something's right or not, and then probably end up going to the pub and talking about it. And it works well because we bring the best out of each other. And if you listen to the new album, one of the things that we said was, if you focus on any instrument on the record, you can focus on it from the beginning of the record to the end of the record, and it's there. You can listen to the bass all the way through, the guitars, the keyboards, the vocal, drums. Nothing goes missing.
This is
And
right.
I think that was our task, and I think we did it.
And the self-title of the album is Altitude. Can you explain us the story behind the lyrics?
Yeah, I write in a strange way, Sebastian, because I write in a form of channeling. So it just kind of turns up, and everything turns up at the same time. So the music and the lyrics and everything else will just arrive, and I don't really have much choice in it. I just then have to put it together. And with this song had already started, the piano piece at the beginning of Altitude and the kind of instrumental section. And in my head, it was just a nice song about flying. It was just about the beauty of being in the air. And it wasn't until I was in the studio one evening and I was playing around with that sequence and where it went, that all of a sudden this lyric, "Target Destroyed," came into the the frame, and I'd had no experience of that. What does that mean? And then I suddenly realized it was about a drone looking at a target. And the whole thing became clear of what the song was about and how the song is a message of peace, basically. And you know, how can we destroy such beauty? You know, it's just common sense, really.
And when listening to it, it seems to be clearly different from the past. The first album was very proggy, I would say, and this one is more pop orientated. Is it a change of musical mood or just maturity doing music that you looks like you?
Yeah, I mean, the first album was actually came from a bet in a pub. Somebody, I said I didn't think prog was going the right way. I felt at the time in the early 2000s that it was treading water, and I felt it could be so much better, if you'll pardon the pun. And so somebody said, "Well, if you think so, why don't you do it then?" And so the first album was designed to be a prog album. That was the thing, but
Of course. No
that
doubt.
wasn't necessary. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't necessarily what we were just about. And if you see a live show, you'll see on John's bass, he has "Destroy All Genres" written on his bass, because we can be anything we want to be. And so with the second album, we introduced a slightly more pop feeling with some of the songs. And with this one, there's an element of pop and an element of jazz fusion. So this album has been compared to everything from UK at one end to Steely Dan at the other end. You know, so I'm who couldn't be happy with that? It's great.
And what is the feedback so far from your fans and music lovers?
Colossal. I mean, it's been ridiculous. You know, we've had 10 out of 10 reviews. We've had yeah, it's just been constant. We haven't had a negative review, and we haven't had anyone saying anything negative about the album. So, you know, we're on the Gaglia Archives charts. We've been number one for the last 5 weeks. And when you look at the people underneath us, you think, well, for an independent band, that's not bad, you know.
They all talk of sophisticated music. What do you think?
Yeah, we like to think so. I mean, the thing that we're trying to draw attention to something that we think has been missing from music for a while. And for instance, when we started all this, we put the price of the CD up. We said, okay, CD's going to be more expensive. You're going to have to get stuff through us. But you know, a few people came back and said, well, CDs are this price. Well, you know, the other week I looked at CDs online, and I saw that what's that, Baby Shark or Shark Baby or whatever it is, was more expensive than Stephen Wilson. And I thought, this isn't right. You don't go into a car showroom and the guy goes, they're all the same price, you know. So to an extent, we have to bring value back into music. And we think, you know, we spend a lot of time, this is over a year's work, to make something very beautiful that will last a lifetime. So it's not throwaway. And we feel there's many bands like that. There's many great bands out there now, new bands doing things. The most difficult part of it, I think, is probably to get it in front of the buyers. So, for instance, as far as our band is concerned, we actually have fans of the band in Genesis and Yes, and you know, King Crimson and various people like this. Caravan, you know, Pi Hastings is a big fan of the band, but we can't get to their fans, you know, and I think that's the difficulty at the moment. So that's the next task we're looking at. But I think putting value into music is so important, otherwise it will just die. So we have to realize that it's not just something that's worth a few cups of coffee. You know, it's something that's going to last for the rest of your life and will complete, you know, it'll be revealing itself to you for many years to come. And isn't that worth a bit more? You know, just our point of view.
I totally agree. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Basti. That's nice to hear.
What would be your favorite song? I read once it was Ivory Tower. Why?
Um, Strangely enough, no, it's a song from the heart, but it's that's Steve's favorite song. My favorite probably is between Shoreline and Fortitude. I think on this, I think the places they go to, you know, the thing that I really love about it, because with any music, if you hear great music, and I'm always trying to hear new music from great artists, and there's so many around at the moment. But I can sit in the car and I can put our CD on, which we've listened to a million times, and the Fortitude will come on and the hairs will go up on the back of my arms, and I'll go, well, it still works then. you know. And I think if it does that for me, I hope it does it for other people as well. So
Can you have a few words about the musicians? I would quote John Poole, Dave Bainbridge, and a newcomer on the drums, Zoltan, and of
sure.
course and of course special guests.
Yeah, indeed. Well, going through the band, obviously John Paul's been in pretty much from the early days when we first started gigging, and Nick decided that he couldn't spend the time because Nick is such a busy guy. Steve Hackett, Steve Wilson at the time. So John came in and just made that his own, and I think he's just the most incredible talent. We often joke about when we're touring, that I'm probably about the third best keyboard player in the band. Dave Bainbridge is amazing. John's really good. And so for me as a musician, this is kind of where in my life I've always wanted to be, where you're in a band with people who are just stupidly talented, and you just marvel at what everybody else can do. And the thing that I think we've also achieved with Lifesigns, to an extent, going slightly off track, is that it's about the song. It's not about the individuals. So I've noticed some people who maybe don't get it so much go, oh, well, it's not really that technical. Are you kidding? you know, it's just that we kind of hide all this stuff. I mean, in the beginning of Altitude, or in the middle part after the cello solo, it's in 57/64. I don't know any other bands that are playing in 57/64. And I remember Zoltan, that was the only thing where he had to have a few goes at it because he's just such a brilliant drummer. And I think we've been very lucky. I mean, Dave plays great keyboards. His guitar solo on Last One Home is to die for. Johnny's a phenomenal bass player. Zoltan just came in and just did it. It was, we gave him N to work on from the previous album, and he had it done in like 3 hours. It was back to us finished. So, we've been extremely fortunate in finding the right people to do the right jobs. And obviously, it is a bit of a revolving door because it's not everyone's day job. So, when people have left or come into the band, it's basically because they've got other things that they had to do, which Peter Knight doing the cello and the violin. And I think, and our old stalwart friend Robin Bolt playing acoustic guitar on Ivory Tower. So, everyone they were all brilliant. I can't complain at all. Marvelous. Feel quite humble.
Just one question for you: what is talent in music? Difficult question, maybe.
That's over a beer, that one, I think, Sebastian. Yeah, I don't know. I can pretty much sum it up, though. We were talking about it the other day. I speak to Nick Beggs a lot because he just lives over the road. And one of the things for me is that we're missing at the moment, especially in the pop world, is artists that are unique, And I refer to people like David Bowie, Peter Gabriel, these sort of people, Kate Bush, that come along and are just, they only made one of them, and I think, unfortunately, with the way that pop music, especially pop music, has gone, is that it becomes like a factory production line. There's an element of 1984 in the whole thing, where it's just, you will be the same as the previous person, you will be auto-tuned the same, and we've had discussions with record companies. I mean, Robin and myself both went to 2 major labels and said, and we were talking to them because they'd invited us down. And they both said that they're only interested in signing things that appeal to 4 to 6 year olds. So if they're only after nursery rhymes, then the music that we regard probably, you're not allowed to say things like intelligent music these days, but the music that has more substance and depth is kind of put to one side. And I feel we must be losing an awful lot of talent at the moment because there is no avenue for them to show themselves. And that's what needs to change. I think we need to find a way to bring. And I think the record companies are stupid because there must be a massive market for stuff that is really of some value, rather than just throwing rubbish at people all day long. So we'll see. It may change over the next few years. I think there might be a quiet rebellion of some kind.
This album was made possible due to crowdfunding and through
Hmm.
pledge music. What can you tell us about it?
Well, not Pledge Music because they'd gone. I mean, we did the second album, Cardington, through Pledge Music, but then I did my solo album Significance with them, and I lost money because it went bust, which I think is terrible because it was such a good idea, and it's so easy to work. But as is usual with the music business, someone got greedy, and that just really destroys everything for so many people, and so many people got hurt a lot worse than I did. But we thought the model was a good model, and we'd already made friends through the crowdfunding, through Pledge Music, and we have a very loyal fan base. So we decided to take what that did, find a website where we could do that, which is Bandzoogle. And between us, we're a very small cottage industry. We have Brett Wild, who does all the fabulous artwork. We have Julie Crow, who looks after making sure the website and everything else runs, and then the band will do various jobs and bits and bobs. I mean, not so much for Dave and John and Zoltan, but me and Steve are always busy doing bits and pieces. But we did find a way to make it work, and I think it's possible for any band to actually start crowdfunding something and build it into something. You just have to have patience, because it takes a while. I mean, most people write to me now and go, "I'm sorry, I've only just found your band. I think it's amazing," and I say to them, "Well, you're still one of the first people that's found it because there's so many people have yet to find it." We don't have major label backing. We haven't got people behind us putting it out there. But word of mouth is, and people like yourselves, is it's our best way of showing what we can do.
Of course. John, what are the plans for the future? Or I would say your wishes for the future?
Well, obviously, we'd all like to be multimillionaires and settle down on the desert island. No, I think seriously, we've had an amazing career to this point. I think things like Cruise to the Edge have been invaluable because they bring us to an audience that wouldn't necessarily know we were there. I do feel like there is an element of me that feels a bit sad that, when you look at the Yes or the Genesis pages and all this kind of thing, they're discussing what shirt Phil Collins was wearing and did he wear the same shirt. It's just, there's so much more that they could discover if they just went out and looked now musically. There are things that they can go and find. So I don't have any problem with that. I mean, it was The Lamb Lies Down was the first thing that got me into music. But I think there is a great scene now of really good bands that need to be discovered. And if that happens, and I think that the difficulty we have at the moment, not so much with Canada, strangely enough, but with the States, is how do you get in? It's $3,000 for a visa. And now we've managed to do that in the UK with Brexit, So now we have to pay to go to Europe. So how we get past all these things, something has to be done. Because as the pandemic took control, musicians were just cast aside. It was like artists did not matter. They were not being furloughed. They were not being given money, or at least not much money. And they still had things to pay like rent and petrol and everything else, which is why I do find it funny when people complain about pricing because they have to live. And I think it's very important that this message changes and value comes back into music over the next. So that would be my thing. I'd like to see that. Obviously, I'd like to see people being able to hear what we do, and just keep pushing.
Thank you for your kindness and your time. I used to end my interviews with short questions. Please play the game and answer me. The song you wish you had written. Ooh.
That's really hard.
One song.
One song I wish I'd written.
Or two maybe. Two maybe.
I don't know. Big Sky, Kate Bush. There we go. think it's a great song. Um, yeah, two. Yeah, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway would be a good start. Yeah, that was the one that got me into all of this. I know. Yeah.
The artist or the band you would have loved to play with?
You know, probably just as well as I do, Sebastian. I've managed to play with a lot of them, you know, and I've been very lucky from that point of view. Um, my career kicked off with Uli Roth, and I was always a Hendrix fan, so that would have been cool. But there was no space for keyboards, I don't think, really. Maybe some Hammond. Um, I don't know. There's a few. Terry Reid back in the day, I think he was an amazing singer. Um, as for I love bands like Caravan, stuff like that. I think they're amazing. I'm not really a big fan of. I think my favorite three piece with things like Refugee and Trace, and they've already got keyboard players, you know. So yeah, just I suppose at the end of all of that, you'd have to say the Beatles, wouldn't you?
And at last, a wish for the future. One wish for the future.
Well, it would be peace and love, basically. That's all I'm interested in.
Thank you, John. Thank you for for your time, and I wish you all the best for the future, of course, and a long career. See you.
Well, it's been pretty long already.
See you, and have a good evening.
And you, thank you, Sebastian. Much appreciated. Thank you for your
See
time.
you. Bye bye, John.
Cheers.